Hello, welcome back. So today, I could really take this one out two ways. I'm going to be talking about the Sixers. Uh, Tottenham have been having some interesting results recently, some things I want to talk about there, but that's story for not right now because yesterday, might have been yesterday, might have been the night before that, but the Sixers fired General Moore. Yep. Okay, get out of my way. Uh, General Manager Daryl Morey, um, he as their head of basketball operations or whatever his title was called. After their second round, their Eastern Conference semifinals sweep against the Knicks, um, and this really came from Joel Embiid being upset with him. I think because after news report that Joel Embiid did not agree with the Jared McCain trade, and he didn't agree with the Jared McCain trade, Joel Embiid, and I don't think any Sixers fan really did agree with the Jared McCain trade. Jared McCain just dropped 25 points a game or two ago for OKC on the en route to a second consecutive sweep for them. They now have won 8 straight playoff games that are in the Western Conference Finals with ease, may I add. Defending champions, by the way. And he has just made so many mistakes in his tenure that aren't even that. But that was kind of the nail that broke the nail in the coffin because Embiid said, "Oh, maybe I won't be here next year." After it was reported that I didn't like Daryl Morey, and then the next day Daryl Morey was fired. So obviously, it shows that we value Embiid more. Nick Nurse's job was also evaluated the head coach. But I do feel a little bit of sympathy for Nick Nurse because what are you going to do when Daryl Morey goes and trades your backup point guard and then the playoffs roll around and your backup point guard is some mix of Quentin Grimes in certain circumstances when he's not a point guard, is Marjon Beauchamp, is Dalen Terry, you know what I mean? They didn't have any adequate guard play that wasn't Tyrese Maxey. And so when the Sixers ended up coming back from 3-1 against the struggling to shoot Celtics, and they go into a series with the rested and ready Knicks team who's been game planning, and they are tired from a 7-game series. They did not get an extra day of rest at all from the end of Game 7 to the end of Game 4 in the next series and subsequently the season. They did not have an extra day of rest at all. It was game, rest day, game, rest day, game, and that is very rare for the NBA playoffs to not have at least 1 or 2 games where you have 2 days in between games, especially on travel days. And I know it's a train and not a plane, but I still think it's important to give a team who just came off a 7-game series an actual rest day. But apparently that's not seen the same by the NBA, and the Sixers got lost by 30 plus in 2 of these games. And the thing is, like I said, Maxey, there's no adequate guard play. So Maxey's out there playing 45 minutes a night, and he did for 11 straight games, and he plays decent in the first 3 quarters, but then the fourth quarter runs around, and he's been sprinting around the court the whole night. He's tired, and he can't produce like he would in the regular season or last year when we had McCain. Even though last year's another reason that Daryl Morey got fired for the train wreck that ensued. The team won 24 games last year. It was one of our worst years ever, I think. And we missed the playoffs wildly. Obviously, we got the 3rd pick and got BJ Edgecombe out of it. So not the worst result. Obviously, we love VJ here, and he has been great for us. But the result from that season, a season where we expected to make the playoffs like we had for the past 10 years, because nothing really changed. But the real thing that Daryl Morey failed to do time and time again when he was tasked with it every single year was build a good team around Joel Embiid. If you are going to do that, we had Joel Embiid probably not who you build a team around right now, right? You're looking at the Sixers, and right now you'd say build it around the backcourt, build it around Maxey and BJ, and I'd agree with that. That's a smarter move, and I think they have a solid squad. Like, the Sixers, Daryl Morey was not afraid to chase a big name and get a big name on our team, but he wouldn't get the smaller names that would elevate the team to be better. He wouldn't go out to get a defender or a catch and shoot guy who could come off. And he traded the only catch and shoot guy they ever had. and relieve Joel Embiid from his struggles. If he was having some, he couldn't build a subsequentially good lineup around Embiid. And while the duo of Embiid and Max is good, you gotta have 5 players on the court, and he couldn't get players to match the play style needed to go far in the playoffs. Um, but the main things that Daryl Morey uh, failed to do um, is, yeah, well, he traded 5 or 4 or something first, second round picks I just saw for George Hill. That's a terrible trade. George Hill never produced for the Sixers. Again, overpaying for veteran presence. Speaking of overpaying for veteran presence, now name Paul George, sound familiar? And while Paul performed decent in his playoffs, he had the reverse issue that Maxey had, to where he was good for 1 quarter and then bad for the rest, and because he's old. And obviously you feel some sympathy for whoever has to make these decisions, because you're making a decision keeping in mind that Embiid's probably not going to be playing over 50 games. Like, he's probably going to be hurt or just missing games on purpose. But then you look at the decisions Daryl makes and you don't feel bad. When Ben Simmons' saga was around, we had the opportunity to trade Ben Simmons to the Kings for Tyrese Halliburton. That was on the table. That was a trade they were going to willingly do. But instead, we traded Ben Simmons to the Clippers for James Harden. And now Harden was, well, not, wait, was that the Clippers? Yeah, I think so, right? Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm right on this. It was the Clippers, right? Um, yeah, because we got Batum in that trade. And when you trade him, yeah, it was the Clippers. Just had to make sure. And when you trade him to the Clippers for James Harden, what you're doing is you're bringing in more old guys. That James Harden window should still be open. James Harden should still be here. Obviously, he's regressing and he's older, but he was a good player for the Sixers. He single-handedly brought the series against the Celtics to 7 games a few years ago, and obviously they lost that game 7, but he was the reason they were in that position. They were favorites in the finals at that point, right? And because Harden was a good player. Maxey was young and developing. He was that guy you get and you don't expect him to do anything, and then he suddenly bursts down and averages good numbers. And that was the one time where he actually did his job. James Harden is the perfect complementary piece to Joel Embiid. A 3-point shooting, good passer, who is a superstar at all of those things. He knows how to dribble the ball. He knows how to pass the ball. He knows how to shoot the ball. His only knack is that he can't defend. And when he finally got that player, he betrayed him. He stabbed him in the back. He promised him a contract that he couldn't deliver on. James Harden went into Asia, started preaching to all the children in Asia about Daryl Morey being the worst GM ever. So obviously they have to get rid of James Harden. And they trade James Harden. Oh no, they trade James Harden to the Clippers for Nico Batum and Marcus Morris. Like, that was so bad for them. Like, it's just so ridiculous to me that that's the return you got. Like, and I get it because they knew it would be a cheap return. So, no, they got him from the Nets. Yeah, they traded him to the Nets. I forgot about it, that big three in the Nets that they never actually played together. But it's like you finally did something right, and then you screw it up 2 years down the line. And that's the problem with Daryl Morey. He couldn't stick to a long-term path that would make the team better. And so now that he's gone, I don't know who is going to come in, and I don't know if they'll be better or worse, but you gotta hope it's better, because Daryl Morey was a horrible GM. He should have been fired 3 years ago, and they're just wasting time, right? Because now you look at the guys, and this is a hard view to look at. Joel Embiid is starting a 3-year, $150 million contract this year. No one's going to want to trade for that, and I don't think they should. I think we should let Joel Embiid retire here. I think that's the best path at this point. Paul George, what is he on, $120 million contract, something like that? Is it like 80 million? It's a high number. It's too high for Paul George. It's in that range. And then you got Tyrese Maxey. You're going to have to give him a bunch of money. You already did give him a bunch of money. VJ Edgecombe, you're going to have to give him a bunch of money. Paul George will hopefully retire in the next 2-3 years, which will give us more money for VJ, obviously. But my point is, it's hard to look at this team now and say definitively who you build it around. Do you focus on trying to get one last push with Joe, or do you just like full stop, pivot, and start building around Tyrese? And I think that's the smart thing to do. Tyrese is the future of this team. When you look at it, it's Tyrese, VJ, and who? Because 5 years down the line, it's going to be Tyrese, VJ should be on this team. Hopefully, obviously, we thought that about Jared last year and he traded him. But Tyrese, VJ should hopefully be here. Embiid will probably be retired or retiring at that point. Paul George will surely be gone. He'll be 41 at that point. And then you look in the middle, and it's like, who else are you going to get? They have the 20th pick, 21st pick in the draft this year that they got from the Houston Rockets in the McCain trade. I really hope that they focus on getting the big man of the future. I think Chris Sinak is a great pick. I think we trade up a few spots and get Isaiah Evans. That's a fine pick, but it's a hard to look in the future of the Sixers and definitively say what they should do in real life. When you're talking about actually doing it, actually making the moves, it's really tough. And I'm excited to see what happens. But Daryl Morey's like his tenure here was a failure. I mean, Embiid. I'll end by telling you this. I won't even go on my other rants this time. Embiid is the only ever in the NBA history only MVP winner to never make a conference finals. He has only ever made the conference semifinals. He's lost in 6 there. He's lost in 7 there. He's lost in 4 there. But he has never made it to the conference finals. And that's because we're not good enough. And we never have been good enough. And every year it looks like we're just finally going to do it. And then we fall short every single year. The cycle of mediocrity has continued for this team for the past 13 years. That's ridiculous. And how do you break it? I don't know. But Daryl Morey wasn't the answer. So now that he's gone, let's hope they can finally do it. Thank you.